Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So I'm going to show you how to sew this gown. I already showed the cotton on my channel. So we're going to gather the fabric together, like the lower part of the gown, using loose stitch. I'm going to show you how to do that, okay? So on your machine, you set it. 4 is like the regular, like when you want to sew normal sewing, but since we want it to be loose, you go all the way down. You can use 0, you can use 1, but 0 would make it very loose. And then this stitch length, you put it to 5. So that if you do it that way, it's easier for you to gather your fabric together. Okay, so make sure you do that setting first, and then now you take your fabric. So what we're just trying to achieve is just to kind of get like a ruffling effect, right? So you just sew it, and when you do this, do not backstitch. Okay, so you do this, you sew it, and then you pick one of the threads this way, just doing it, and then you ruffle it together. So I'm going to try as much as possible to show every step so that it's beginner friendly, and then you can do it yourself. So you see, you gather it, and what you want to achieve is gather it to whatever your measurement is, right? Now moving on to the upper part of the gown, we'll start by sewing the neckline. So you place your fabric front facing front, right? Just if you're using lining as well, you just place the front part facing the front part. Okay, so we'll start with the neckline, and then we'll sew the neckline. Okay, all right. Also, now you can see that how it's neat. Now you make a notch, like just use your scissors to make a notch. Now we're also going to sew. This is the back portion, right? You sew the neckline, but then you sew it down also to the, like if you're using zipper or button area, just like that. And you also make your notch, then you turn it inside out. See how neat it is. So it's neat this way. You should get your iron, press it so it's neat. That's another trick for sewing, like iron along as you go. It's going to make your sewing super neat. Okay, so you do that for both sides. So this is the back piece, we sew both. So now look at it, I've ironed this here. See how flat and flawless it looks. And then you have the front part as well, all sewn, all ironed. Okay, we are making progress. Now we want to join the shoulder together. That's what we're going to do now. And in order to do that as well, also front to front, always remember front to front, because that way when you sew, when you turn it, you have like the right side, right? Look at this method I'm using to sew the shoulder. It helps to make it neat, it hides the sewing. So you just have to watch closely to understand. Okay, and then you put a straight line. I'm showing it again, so you can just repeat this part so you kind of understand it. Okay, so basically you place it front facing front, just like that, and then you make sure those middle parts, see what I'm doing, those line align perfectly, and then you pick the fabric, and then you turn it to the other side. You pick the front fabric, so it's the front one that you're gonna flip over. You get what I mean? And then you sew it all straight. Okay, and that's it. It's easy. You can use this for other type of sewing as well, just do exactly the same thing. And then it's good to secure your sewing with pins. It also makes your work neat. Okay, and then you just sew it all straight. So see what it looks like. See, this is how the shoulder looks now. Super neat. So you kind of hiding the sewing, instead of you sewing it and it looks all rough, you can use this way. This is also great if you don't have like weaving machine, because you're able to hide the sewing. Okay, so moving on, this is still the upper part of the gown, like where you join it to the lower part. You make a notch in the middle. It's good to make like notches just so it keeps you organized and helps you to identify the midpoint. Okay, so that's why I made a notch there. And now this is the lower part we gathered before, remember. So you can also make a notch in the middle part of this one. It might be harder to see, so you could also just stick a like a pin at the midpoint or just something, or maybe mark it with a chalk. That way it's easier for you to match the midpoint of the lower part to the midpoint of the upper part of the gown. Okay, so I'm just making my measurement here. You make your measurement, you make sure, and then you do it. Okay, yeah, if you've watched out up to this part, please like, share, subscribe. That's what keeps me going. Okay, please, I really appreciate that. Okay, so you measure this, and then based on whatever your measurement is, you see I'm using pin here just to note the midpoint. Is easier to see than a notch. Okay, so now we sew it together. Make sure you backstitch now, okay, so because we're really sewing. And then another thing, yes, please remember to return your settings back to 4. That is the tension on your machine. Return it back to 4, and then the length of your stitches, return it back to 2.5 or whatever your regular is. Okay, remember that. If not, your sewing would be loose. Okay, so now moving on, this is the lower part of the gown. So remember the back part, we divided into 2, like the lower part. So you sew it all the way, but you leave about 2-3 inches just this way. You can see what I left here. So, and then we're going to pipe that edge together just to make it neat. So this is like if you're using zipper, but I'm going to use snap button. That's why it's little this way. So if you're using zipper, snap button, whatever you're using, you leave the space. You would understand better once you keep seeing what I'm doing. So I'm just going to pipe that edge together for the lower part of the gown. Okay, so you sew it all the way down, not like all the way to where you left, and then when you get, just watch closely and see what I'm doing. When you get to that part, you lift your foot up, you turn the fabric, and then you sew the other side again. Okay, these ones are like the basic like how to pipe fabric and all. And if you have any question, do not hesitate to ask. Drop your questions and I will answer to the best of my knowledge. Okay, so you do that, you sew this way, like you cross it that way, and then you turn the fabric again. Okay, okay, see how neat it turns out now. That's the back portion of the lower part. Okay, see the front part, and I'm going to show you tricks to do if you don't have a weaving machine that would help make your sewing neat to some extent. Okay, to a large extent actually. So see what I did now, just watch closely to understand. The lining, I kind of turned it the other way, and then I'm going to sew inside. It's a bit technical and tricky, but if you watch closely you'll understand, and then you just sew it all the way straight. Okay, Now see, when you turn it, see how it looks. See, it looks much better. And you just have to kind of like iron it out, and then when you iron it, it would come out neat. You do the same thing to the back. Okay, so you join this together, but you make sure you're joining at first only the front part, so that you can use the lining to kind of cover it just the way we did to the front. Okay, so that's what we're going to do, and then you do exactly that. Okay, so after doing that, you do the same thing with the front part. You join the lower part to the upper part. Okay, but now remember, we have like 2 different parts at the back, so you join it like separately, right? And like I said, you join it to the main fabric, and then we'll use the lining to kind of cover it up. Okay, so that's just what I did. So I joined that. You see, I joined only one part, and then the other part, see, you fold it the other way, like just the way we did the front, and then you cover it. And all these things, there are different methods to it, right? You don't have to stick to my method, just so far you achieve the same thing. Okay, all we are trying to do is hide the rough sewing. Okay, and if you have a weaving machine, you can just join it like just regular way, and then just weave it. Okay, so I'm just trying to make this as neat as possible without using the weaving machine. Okay, so that's just what I'm doing here. Okay, and then you sew all that. Now let's turn it out, and voila, see, it's very neat. Just like I said, iron along, so you should take your iron it, make it flat. It's going to help your sewing. It's better you iron along than for you to wait, finish sewing everything, and then start to try to iron it. Okay, so it's coming together very beautifully. Okay, so I am trying to make some design to the front. I have the trimmings, and I was just trying to design what pattern to use. So I was thinking of folding it into 2 and then just sew it, and that's what I did. I just made some designs there. Okay, now that's our belt. Remember the belt we cut? You fold it into 2, and then you sew it. You can sew it all the way straight, or you could make, like, when you're closer to the end, make like a triangular design, and that will kind of help make the tip of the belt kind of a bit sharp. Okay, just watch closely and see what I do. Okay, see, I use the chalk. You can mark like 2 inches or so, and then just slanting it, and then you just sew it just that way. So you do that to the other belt as well. Okay, so when you sew the belt, I try to turn it inside out, right? And this is what I used. Okay, you can use anything, like if you have in it like a metal stuff, something like a pencil. I just use it to turn, or if you have like an equipment you can use to turn it around. I just use this one. See, I'm teaching you another trick. Okay, and then you just turn it inside out, and like I said, iron along. So once you turn it out, you iron it. Okay, and this is what it looks like. See, very neat. Then you join the belt first to both sides before you now sew your gown fully at the sides. Okay, so remember to do that. Okay, now we are joining. See, this is the wrong side of the fabric, right? See how neat it looks. So we join the sides together. Okay, you sew it all the way down, and then after you join it all the way down based on your measurements, right? You measure your like the waist, and then you kind of just flare it out. Right now I'm measuring the armhole just so I can pipe it. So you measure it, whatever it is, then you measure a fabric. I'm using 2 inches, but you can also use like 1.5 inches, which would act like a bias kind of. Now front facing front, you see what I'm doing just to make that part neat. You put it front facing front, and then I would fold the beginning part inside, and just so it's neat. So this is what I was saying. Yeah, I'll fold it that way, and then you sew it all along, and then you turn it inside. Just watch closely, and then you can like slowly play the video, repeat it so that you understand it. Okay. Okay, so now I would just fold that in that way, see, and then just watch closely. So after I've sewn the first part, you fold it in, and then you turn it this way. You fold it in again. That's why I use 2 inches. But if you know how to sew like very closely, you can also use 1.5. But 2 inches will give you more room, and then you sew it. If you also have like bias, I don't have a sample post, but you can also use it instead of cutting out the fabric, right? Like all this colored bias, like you can use black, you can use white, and then you just use it for the same function. And then you just sew it all the way around. You do the same thing for the other armhole as well. Okay. Okay, so both sides are done, and basically that's it. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Thank you so much for watching.